Hi, this is John Blossom, and the clock has just started.
Hi, this is Peter Propp. Welcome to 10 Minute Strategy. We are here to talk today about what is happening in the cloud. We've had Amazon's cloud, we've had Microsoft's cloud, we've of course had Google's cloud, the iCloud just got announced, and now we've got a whole array of big players who are really taking advantage of the phenomena, which really ultimately is a recasting of something that's been going on in the internet for many, many years. But John, why don't you start with a discussion on what's going on with Google Chrome OS?
Sure thing. This week, Google has been rolling out its Chromebooks, the first officially released hardware that is running Chrome OS, its operating system that is basically nothing but the web. You turn on a Chromebook, and what you get is a Chrome browser, and that's pretty much it. There's the ability to store files on the unit if you want, and stream back music and things like that off of an auxiliary card in it if you want. But basically what you get is a Chrome browser. And their idea is to have people more reliant on the web for all of their functionality. And they have capabilities built into the Chrome OS browser already that encourage people to use web applications that are out there, some of which are Google's, but many of which are from other sources. I posted on this on my second web blog, secondwebbook.com, and I think of it a little bit like what RCA did back in the 1920s.
Right.
You may have seen the old-fashioned movies when they had those cathedral-looking little radios there.
Right.
Those were like the first real popular radios that people bought. They were kind of like the iPhones of their era. They were kind of sexy in the 1920s way of looking at things, and people bought them in droves, and they were much simpler and easier to use than the kind of geeky sort of radios that came before then. And RCA did that with a method to their madness, because millions of people bought that, and with that they got millions of people out there listening to their radio stations where they were selling advertising. And that's ultimately what the Google strategy is behind Chrome, is to get us more dependent on the web as a whole.
Right. It's interesting if you think about why Google's going to be successful with Chrome OS. It starts with content, right? They've got people addicted to Gmail. They've got people moving up into Google Docs and other services. And they've announced a music initiative which may or may not pass legal muster, but they've given it the Google try, and they'll certainly be a player there. What's I think interesting is 15 years ago, 20 years ago, actually 15 years ago, didn't Sun introduce a net strategy where it was just going to be you could log in anywhere and get to your stuff? That went absolutely nowhere, and the reason is there's no content. They didn't have any content, and it was a very, very difficult thing to really build without a lot of users and a lot of memory and a lot of things that have gone a lot faster in the internet since Sun was building those machines back in the day. Now what's going on, when you start with content, and John, you've gotten me addicted to this concept of content. When you start with content, you get the eyeballs. When you get the eyeballs, people work with stuff that give you feedback. They make it work. You watch patterns, and you can leverage those patterns to tremendous success.
Absolutely, and this is what companies are doing today. They understand that content is not just something that comes from publishers. It's our interactions with things on the web. It's the metadata that we give them on the web. Anything that's an information or experience out there is capturable and has great contextual value.
Yeah, I've heard recently a lot about the leveraging of problems, leveraging of complaints, and one place I read recently said that a complaint is a gift because someone took the time to actually tell you that they like your product except for X.
Exactly.
And Google has taken that.
It's like arguing with your wife. You wouldn't do it unless you cared for her, maybe.
Exactly right. So it's an opportunity to get better, and the companies that leverage that do really, really well. Boy, there's one big company that spent many years ignoring customer feedback, and they start with an M. They are Microsoft. And if you think about where they are today, with IBM now passing them in market cap, Apple had already passed them, and Google certainly had. It's tremendously interesting. For years and years and years, all of us suffering with the Office suite would say, my God, why doesn't this little thing work? Or why doesn't this work with the operating system? And instead of fixing the thing that wasn't working, they would always introduce a new version.
Yeah.
And they're going to pay the penalty now.
Microsoft is the poster child of the product-centric company
Right.
that now is trying to scramble with its proposals for Windows 8 to try to become more customer-centric, more cross-platform. But in the meantime, Apple has stepped into that vacuum.
Right.
And if you look at their announcements at WWDC last week,
Right.
it's all about cross-platform. It's all about seamless integration.
Mhm.
It's all about it just works.
Right.
And it is all proprietary, but if somebody has to step into that value-added space,
Mm-hmm.
why shouldn't Apple be taking that space if Microsoft is stumbling?
Right. We were talking earlier about 5 years ago. There was a very big announcement, maybe a little longer, where Microsoft and Apple had completed negotiations where Microsoft was going to update Microsoft Office for the Mac. And that was a very, very big opportunity for Apple. And Microsoft did what they said they would do, and the Apple growth, it has to be partly attributed to the fact that there was a very good Office suite that people generally knew how to work with. It's always been a little different between the platforms, but once there was something that people could generally work with, Apple was able to really accelerate their growth.
Yeah.
What's interesting now with iCloud is that it comes on the heels about 2 years since Apple started to really reinvest in iWork, right? And one of the reasons they reinvested in iWork was, I think, because of their tablet vision.
Tell people what iWork is in case of
iWork is Apple's Office suite. It's productivity suite.
Yeah.
So one of the cool things on the iPad is you can use it very well. You can look at presentations very well. You can build presentations very well. There's restaurants who use Keynote as their menus, as an example.
Yeah.
And it's terrific. It's beautiful. It has nice animation, all that. With the cloud, what Apple announced last week is iWork documents can be built on an iPhone. They can be built on an iPad. They can be built on a Mac. They get updated to the cloud, and they could be synced up between any of those apps seamlessly. And that is a remarkable achievement. And guess what? They're not doing it for the Microsoft Office suite. They're doing it for iWork, and you're going to start to see the shipments of iWork go up steadily. And I have a feeling that this is a very specific attempt to knock down Microsoft another peg.
Oh, absolutely. They're going to be getting them on the consumer side and the enterprise side.
Right.
Even at the same time that Google is coming in on the other side of that pincer with its docs and other apps, services, and along with its consumer cloud products as well. And poor Microsoft is stuck there in the middle with the legacy.
They are the legacy provider right now.
Yeah.
It's very, very interesting.
Yeah.
Coming from a big-time legacy company, I always thought that Microsoft was making a number of mistakes in the way it was treating its customers, in the way it was being so aggressive with Explorer and all these other things. And their attitude was always, I thought, going to come back and get them, and I think it is now.
Yeah. If it weren't for what they did with the browser back in '95, they'd be toast.
Right.
And other than that, they have had little to leverage to accelerate their strategy for years.
Right.
So we'll see what happens.
Absolutely.
In the meantime, on the edges of this, we have other successful players like Amazon,
Right.
who is selling us the shovels with their cloud infrastructure, making tons of money with music and video and other types of e-commerce
Right.
on top of these platforms
Plus
as
the
well.
Kindle.
Plus the Kindle platforms also.
Yeah.
So there's plenty of money to be made in the cloud, but you
Absolutely.
have to be syncable, you have to be cross-platform, and
And I think the main thing is you have to think about the customer in the center.
yeah.
If you put the customer in the center and they've got all these devices, that is the most important thing you can consider when you're building a platform type strategy like these guys are.
Well, I see that we're coming up to the end of our time. I think the important thing for people to remember about the cloud is just what you are leaving us with. It's about us.
Right.
And it's about our interests, and it's about all the content that we really care about.
Right.
So I'm John Blossom.
I'm Peter Propp.
Thanks
for
again.
joining.